Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
What's up, everyone, and welcome. This is the Cybersecurity Weekly Review, where we take a look at all the security events that happened in the last week. We're dealing with August 10th through August 16th, 2021. We start off with a pretty crazy story, the Poly Network hack, and we explain a little bit about it. Unless you're living under a rock, you might have read about that last Tuesday, the largest crypto hack in history targeted cross-chain decentralized finance platform Poly Network and allowed an undisclosed attacker to steal the equivalent of a whopping $610 million of cryptocurrency tokens. On August 10th, Poly Network reported that an undisclosed attacker hacked a smart contract of the network, transferring the equivalent of roughly $610 million, mainly in Ether, Binance Coin, and USD dollars, and moving them to external wallet addresses. According to cybersecurity firm Slowmist and security researcher Kelvin Fichter, the hack was made possible by a mismanagement of the access rights between two important smart contracts. The first one is ETH Cross-Chain Manager, and the second one is ETH Cross-Chain Data. ETH Cross-Chain Data is a very high privilege contract that is not supposed to be invoked by anyone within the network except by its owners. The reason is that this contract is responsible for setting and managing a list of public keys of the authenticator nodes or keepers that manage the wallets in the underlying liquidity chains. In other words, ETH Cross-Chain Data can decide who has the privilege of moving the large amount of funds contained within Poly's Binance wallet, Ethereum wallet, etc. If an attacker could call the right function, put cur epoch con pub key bytes within ETH Cross-Chain Data, there would be no need to attack a keeper's secret key. The attacker could simply set their own public key to replace that of a keeper. And then they would have the right to execute a high-volume transaction within the Poly network to exfiltrate a large amount of funds to other wallets. Clearly, not something you want to happen. Now, ETH Cross-Chain Manager is another high-privilege contract that has the right to trigger messages from another chain to the Poly chain, which means anybody can call a cross-chain event by issuing a transaction on the source chain that invokes the verify header and execute TX function within ETH Cross-Chain Manager, and specifying a target Poly contract to execute. However, because of its particular intended use, ETH Cross-Chain Manager would not call any function within the target contract, but only the one with a very specific Solidity function ID. Namely, it would only call a function whose base 32-bit ID is computed. In other words, the ID of the function called is computed as the 32-bit truncation of a 256-bit KSAC hash of the string underscore method and a suffix. The attacker exploited these two problems here. First, it turns out that ETH Cross-Chain Manager is an owner of ETH Cross-Chain Data and can therefore execute privileged functions within ETH Cross-Chain Data. The second one is that the field underscore method in the code is actually user-defined and can therefore be set at will. In particular, it is possible for the attacker to brute force a underscore method field that hashes to a 32-bit value that is exactly the ID we were talking about just on the previous slide for put cur epoch con pub key bytes. Now the crazy part, the attacker has returned all cryptocurrencies he can control. Now some individual cryptocurrencies have actually been blocked by the cryptocurrency developers themselves, so he cannot return them yet, but he promised to do so as soon as the block has been removed. In other news, Poly Network has offered him $500,000 in review and said that they would not press any charges against him. Then the authorities came and said, well, you as a private company don't have the right to say whether somebody is immune from prosecution. So, of course, this guy's probably going to stay anonymous. Now, I am working on an episode to explain this attack in much more detail, but that was the craziest story from last week.
Let me take a minute to give you some powerful reasons why you should share this video. Now, if you have seen this before, feel free to skip to the next section or just enjoy it again. If you haven't seen it yet, I want to show you how you can be a superstar in your team and your company just by sharing this video. First off, I really appreciate you watching this episode, liking it, and of course, subscribing to my channel. but I ask you to share it through any and all channels you have access to, whether Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest. You can link to it from your websites, or even send it in an email to your colleagues, friends, and family. If we can spread this information to enough people, we all together can work to make the internet more secure. So, share it with developers in your team or developers that you know so they can integrate the security measures I will outline in this episode directly into their workflow. Share it with quality testers in your team or ones you know so they can benefit from this information and improve things like writing their acceptance criteria and test cases. Share it with project managers and product owners so they can make sure projects have the right security principles in mind and can talk intelligently to stakeholders about the importance of these measures. Share it with CEOs, VPs, and managers to show them that you're on top of these topics, taking them seriously, making you look like a superstar in their eyes. And finally, share it with your mom, dad, grandma, or friends, or anyone you can think of. Keeping them safe and helping them have a safer experience on the internet will definitely save you time and headache. Now, if you haven't already, right now is the perfect time to pause this video and share it before we really get deep into the content. Thanks again for your support.
Phishing. First, we have Microsoft warning of an evasive year-long spear-phishing campaign targeting Office 365 users. Microsoft revealed that a year-long spear-phishing campaign has targeted Office 365 customers in multiple attacks starting with July 2020. The attackers used invoice-themed XLS.html attachments. Microsoft reported that they changed obfuscation and encryption mechanisms every 37 days on average, a circumstance that demonstrates how highly motivated they are and the threat actors' abilities to constantly evade detection. The HTML attachment is divided into several segments, including the JavaScript files used to steal passwords, which are then encoded using various mechanisms. These attackers moved from using plain text HTML code to employing multiple encoding techniques, including old and unusual encryption methods like Morse code, to hide these attack segments. That's what how the report read, published by Microsoft 365 Defender Threat Intelligence Team. Some of these code segments are not even present in the attachment itself. Instead, they reside in various open directories and are called by encoded scripts. Attackers split the HTML attachment in individual segments that appear harmless and bypass security solutions. Experts believe the attackers' aims are harvesting usernames, passwords, and in recent waves of attacks, other information such as IP address and location that could be used in later attacks. So they try to get your let's say your corporate network's IP address so that they can then scan it to see what services you have on those IP addresses and ultimately try to hack into your corporate network. The segments composing the attachment include Segment 1, email address of the target, Segment 2, logo of the targeted user's organization from logo.clearbit.com or ia.gayazo.com or api.statfu.com. If the logo is not available, this segment loads the Microsoft Office 365 logo instead. Segment 3 is a script that loads an image of a blurred document indicating that sign-in has supposedly timed out. And then Segment 4, a script that prompts the user to enter their password, submits the entered password to a remote phishing kit, and displays a fake page with an error message to the user. So they have your username and password now. Spam was on the rise in the second quarter with video fraud and COVID-19 related efforts in the mix. The second quarter saw a rise in entertainment lures for fraud and phishing, including one campaign capitalizing on the buzz around Friends: The Reunion. Researchers at Kaspersky found fake sites supposedly hosting video for the much-anticipated special episode of the popular sitcom, according to its analysis of second quarter trends released last week. Fans who tried to watch or download the episode were redirected to a Columbia Pictures splash screen. After a few seconds, the broadcast stopped, replaced by a request to pay a nominal fee. Variations on the gambit had cropped up in late April, too. Timed around the Academy Awards, Oscar-nominated movies were graced with fake websites offering free viewings of the contenders. The quarter also saw the return of cloud-related phishing lures, Kaspersky found, likely driven by the continued remote working phenomenon, call it a phenomenon, in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. Excuse me. A fake notification about a Microsoft Teams meeting or a request to view an important document traditionally takes the victim to a phishing login page asking for corporate account credentials, according to the report. WordPress sites abused an Aggah spear-phishing campaign. Threat actors are using compromised WordPress websites to target manufacturers across Asia with a new spear-phishing campaign that delivers the Warzone Rat, a commodity info stealer available widely for purchase on criminal forums. The threat group Aggah, believed to be affiliated with Pakistan and first identified in March 2019, is delivering the rat in a campaign aimed at spreading malware to manufacturing companies in Taiwan and South Korea, according to new research from threat detection and response security firm Anomaly. The campaign, which began in early July, uses spoofed email addresses appearing to originate with legitimate customers of the manufacturers, signaling that it was the work of Aggah, researchers noted. The group, which typically aims to steal data from targets, was first thought to be associated with Gorgon Group, a Pakistani group known for targeting Western governments. This association has not been proven, but researchers tend to agree that the Urdu-speaking group originated in Pakistan, again according to Anomaly. We now move on to patches. Adobe fixes critical flaws in Magento, and they say patch it immediately. Adobe security updates for August 2021 address a total of 29 flaws, including critical vulnerabilities in Magento and important issues in Adobe Connect. Multiple critical vulnerabilities could be exploited by attackers to gain arbitrary code execution. Magento has also released updates to fix 26 vulnerabilities, including 10 pre-authentication vulnerabilities in Magento that can be exploited by an unauthenticated attacker. A remote attacker could exploit some of these vulnerabilities to gain code execution and take over the eStore. Adobe has released an update for Adobe Reader that addresses 26 flaws. Most of these are out-of-bounds reads, but there are also some user use after free out-of-bounds writes, stack exhaustion, and memory corruption bugs addressed. One bug being fixed here is CVE 2020-9697, which was found by ZDI Vulnerability Analysis Manager Abdul Aziz Hariri. The reliable info disclosure leak appears to have existed for more than a decade. Another interesting issue is CVE 2020-9712 that could allow attackers to bypass HTML parsing mitigations within Adobe Pro DC. The flaw could be triggered by an attacker to parse HTML documents remotely from within Acrobat. Adobe also released security fixes for a privilege escalation bug in Adobe Lightroom. Microsoft Patch Tuesday security update fix PrintNightmare flaws. Microsoft released Patch Tuesday security updates for August that address 120 CVEs in multiple products, including Microsoft Windows, Edge HTML-based and Chromium-based, Chakra Core, Internet Explorer, Microsoft Scripting Engine, SQL Server, .NET Framework, ASP.NET Core, Office and Office Services and Web Apps, Windows Codex Library, and Microsoft Dynamics. 17 vulnerabilities fixed by the IT giant have been rated critical. The remaining are rated as important in severity. One actively exploited issue is a local privilege flaw tracked as CVE 2021-36948. The vulnerability affects the Windows Update Medic service and has been rated important with a CVSS base score of 7.8. Microsoft described the vulnerability as a local privilege escalation bug, a suggestion that it is part of a larger software exploit chain. One of the most severe flaws addressed by the company, tracked as CVE 2020-1380, is a scripting engine memory corruption vulnerability. A remote code execution vulnerability exists in the way that the scripting engine handles objects in memory in Internet Explorer. The vulnerability could corrupt memory in such a way that an attacker could execute arbitrary code in the context of the current user. An attacker who successfully exploited the vulnerability could gain the same user rights as the current user. Now, if the current user is logged on with administrative user rights, an attacker who successfully exploited the vulnerability could take control of an affected system. An attacker could then install programs, view, change, or delete data, or create new accounts with full user rights, reads the advisory published by Microsoft. Another flaw fixed by Microsoft, tracked to CVE 2020-1585, is a Microsoft Windows Codex Library remote code execution vulnerability. We move on to Black Hat Novel DNS hack spills confidential corporate data. Amazon and Google patched a domain name service bug that allowed attackers to snoop on the confidential networking settings of companies, revealing computer and employee names along with office locations and exposed web resources. The vulnerability outlined in a Black Hat USA 2021 talk last week is a new class of vulnerabilities affecting major DNS as a service providers, according to researchers at the security firm Wiz. Ami Lutwak, co-founder and CTO of Wiz, said the bug allows an adversary to conduct unprecedented reconnaissance on a target, namely any vulnerable corporate network that inadvertently allows this type of network eavesdropping. While Amazon and Google have patched the bug, Lutwak warns the problem is likely widespread. Wiz revealed that the vulnerability affecting DNS SaaS providers, Amazon Route 53 and Google Cloud DNS, which both promptly patched the bug in February. SAP patches 9 critical and high-severity bugs. SAP released 19 new and updated security patches, 3 of them rated as hot news, critical, and 6 as high priority. Hot news is the severity rating that SAP gives to critical vulnerabilities. 2 of this month's sizzlers have a CVSS score of 9.9 and affect SAP Business One and SAP NetWeaver development infrastructure. SAP applications help organizations manage critical business processes, including enterprise resource planning, product lifecycle management, customer relationship management, and supply chain management. One of the 9.9ers is CVE 2021-33698, an unrestricted file upload issue affecting SAP Business One, which is the German company's business management software for small and medium-sized enterprises. The vulnerability allows an attacker to upload files, including malicious scripts, to the server. SAP described the second critical severity bug, CVE 2021-33690, as a server-side request forgery affecting NetWeaver development infrastructure in a servlet of the component build service. As far as the third hot news vulnerability goes, CVE 2021-33701, the flaw is a SQL injection in the SAP NZDT, the near zero downtime technology service used by S4HANA, and the DMIS mobile plugin. Its CVS severity score rating is 9.1. Now to the high severity bugs. CVE 2021-33702 is a cross-site scripting vulnerability in SAP NetWeaver Enterprise Portal that was caused by one of the portal's servlets and given a rating of CVSS 8.3. A second cross-site scripting vulnerability, which is marked as CVE 2021-33703, similarly found in another servlet of SAP NetWeaver Enterprise Portal and also rated with 8.3 in the CVSS score. Now, CVE 2021-33705 addresses a server-side request forgery vulnerability in one of the design time components of SAP NetWeaver Enterprise Portal that would allow an unauthenticated attacker to craft a malicious URL that could send any type of request, post or get, to any internal or external server were a user to click on it. Finally, the CVE 2021-33707 was tagged with a CVS score of 6.1. It concerns a URL redirection bug in SAP Knowledge Management. We move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. Microsoft warns of a new unpatched Windows Print Spooler RCE 0-day. Microsoft published a security advisory to warn its customers of another remote code execution 0 vulnerability tracked as CVE 2021-36958. In the previous story a few slides back, it was 948. This is for 958. That resides in the Windows Print Spooler component. A local attacker could exploit the vulnerability to gain system privileges on vulnerable systems. A remote code execution vulnerability exists when the Windows Print Spooler service improperly performs privileged file operations. An attacker who successfully exploited this vulnerability could run arbitrary code with system privileges. An attacker could then install programs, view, change, or delete data, or create new accounts with full user rights, reads the security advisory published by Microsoft. The workaround for this vulnerability is stopping and disabling the Print Spooler service. The new flaw received a CVSS score of 7.3. Microsoft said that the only workaround for this issue is to disable the Print Spooler service. The vulnerability was discovered in December by Victor Mata from Accenture Security. Speaking of Accenture, hackers stole client info, work details, and Accenture ransomware attack. In an Accenture ransomware attack. Ransomware hackers began leaking Accenture data after the consulting giant suffered a security incident where the perpetrators made off with client-related documents and work materials. The Lockbit 2.0 gang has threatened to leak further data after providing purported proof of the breach. Accenture acknowledged the attack on Wednesday, but has downplayed its severity. Through our security controls and protocols, we identified irregular activity in one of our environments, an Accenture spokesperson said. We immediately contained the matter and isolated the affected servers. We fully restored our affected servers from backup. There was no impact on Accenture's operations or on our clients' systems. Again, a company saying that's had data about their customers stolen, saying, well, our operations weren't affected, so it's no big deal. The Fortune 500 company had $44 billion in revenue in 2020, employs more than 500,000 people around the globe, and does work in cybersecurity. So a cybersecurity company that gets attacked and succumbs to ransomware. Data breach at U.S. waste management firm exposes employees' healthcare details. A data breach at U.S. waste management firm Waste Management Resources has exposed the healthcare information of current and former employees as well as their dependents. Our investigation determined that an unauthorized attacker entered our environment between January 20th and 23rd, 2021, accessed certain files, and took a limited number of files. The unknown hacker was able to access the healthcare information of certain staff who submitted claims to its self-insured health plan. The files that may have been accessed includes names, social security numbers, taxpayer identification numbers, government and state ID numbers, driver's license numbers, dates of birth, bank account numbers, debit and credit card numbers. Also exposed were staff members and dependents' medical history and treatment information, health insurance information, passport numbers and usernames, email addresses, and passwords for financial electronic accounts. That is pretty severe. So if you happen to work for Waste Management Resources or know anybody that does, make them aware to be on the lookout for phishing scams because they're definitely coming. SynAck ransomware gang releases decryption keys for old victims. The El Cometo ransomware gang, formerly known as SynAck, has released today master decryption keys for the victims they infected between July 2017 and early 2021. The leaked keys were provided to the record earlier today by an individual who identified themselves as a member of the former SynAck group. The keys have been verified as authentic by Michael Gillespie, a malware analyst at the security firm MCSoft and the creator of the ID ransomware service. In case you didn't know, that's who created ID ransomware. Gillespie told the record he was able to use the leaked decryption utilities and private keys to decrypt files from old SynAck attacks. Classified documents from Lithuanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs are available for sale. An archive containing 1.6 million emails containing highly sensitive messages allegedly stolen from the Lithuanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs is available for sale on the Raid Forums hacking forum. The ad doesn't include the price for the archives, but the seller claims that the high demand for the stolen data is causing an increase in the price. The government did not comment on the authenticity of the emails, but the seller leaked some documents and messages belonging to Lithuanian diplomats as proof of the authenticity of the data. "We see this as an information attack by unfriendly countries," reads a statement published by the Lithuanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The seller claims to have a 300 gigabyte archive of 102 Outlook data files. It also added that some conversations are related to secret negotiations against U.S. President Biden and preparation for the war with Belarus, including a nuclear strike. Vice Society ransomware also exploits PrintNightmare flaws in its attack. The Vice Society ransomware operators are actively exploiting Windows Print Spooler PrintNightmare vulnerability in their attacks against Windows servers. The PrintNightmare flaws, tracked as CVE 2021-1675, CVE 2021-34527, and the newly added CVE 2021-36958, reside in the Windows Print Spooler service print drivers and the Windows Point and Print feature. An attacker can exploit these vulnerabilities for local privilege escalation or remote code execution. Microsoft issued security updates between June and August to address the above issues. It also implemented the same changes to the default point and print default behavior. No non-administrator users will no longer be able to do the following using point and print without an elevation of privilege to administrator: install new printers using drivers on a remote computer server, or update existing printer drivers using drivers from remote computer servers. Trend Micro warns customers of zero-day attacks against its products. On July 28th, Trend Micro released security patches for multiple incorrect permission assignment privilege escalation, incorrect permission preservation authentication bypass, arbitrary file upload, and local privilege escalation vulnerabilities in Apex One and Apex One as a Service products. The security firm also reported that attackers are already exploiting at least two of the flaws: CVE 2021-32464, CVE 2021-32465, CVE 2021-36741, and CVE 2021-36742 in attacks in the wild. The vulnerabilities affect the Trend Micro Apex One on-premise and the Apex One as a Service on Windows. Trend Micro has observed an active attempt of exploitation against 2 of these vulnerabilities chained in the wild in a very limited number of instances, and we have been in contact with these customers already. All customers are strongly encouraged to update to the latest versions as soon as possible, reads the advisory from Trend Micro. Magniber Ransomware operators use PrintNightmare exploits to infect Windows servers. So it's going around the block. 3 actors behind the Magniber ransomware are exploiting the PrintNightmare flaws. Again, see 2021-1675, 2021-34527, and 2021-36958 to infect Windows servers. CrowdStrike recently observed malicious activity associated with the Magniber ransomware, a threat actor that has been around since 2017. In recent wave of attacks, the threat actors attempted to trigger the PrintNightmare vulnerability on systems belonging to victims in South Korea. The experts discovered that once compromised, the server exploiting a PrintNightmare flaw, Magniber drops an obfuscated DLL loader, then injects into a process, and later unpacks the DLL loader to perform local file traversal and encryption of the infected system. The ransomware drops a ransom note that does not reveal anything about the ransomware operators. It only provides instructions to contact the threat actors for negotiation. According to Bleeping Computer, Magniber's activity spiked in the last 30 days. Experts report almost 600 submissions on the ID ransomware platform. UNC215, an alleged China-linked APT group, targets Israel organizations. China-linked cyber espionage group has targeted Israeli organizations and government institutions in a campaign that began in January 2019. The attacks were detailed by cybersecurity firm Mandiant. The state-sponsored hackers used false flags in attempts to disguise themselves as Iran-linked threat actors. Mandiant experts tracked the group as UNC215. Its TTPS overlaps the China-linked APT27 cyber espionage group, but they have no sufficient evidence to say the 2 groups are the same. The UNC215 group typically exploited a flaw in Microsoft SharePoint tracked to CVE 2019-0604 to compromise vulnerable installs. Once initial access to the target infrastructure is gained, the attackers performed an extensive internal network reconnaissance and harvested credentials to conduct additional malicious activities. Experts reported that the attackers also used a non-public network scanner named WheatScan, along with custom malware such as Focus FJord, WebShell, and HyperBro to spy on internal systems and maintain persistence within the target organizations. New Echo Rakes ransomware variant targets NAS devices from both QNAP and Synology vendors. A new variant of the Echo Rakes ransomware is able to infect network-attached storage devices from Taiwanese vendors QNAP and Synology. The Echo Rakes ransomware has been active since at least 2019, when experts from security firms Intezer and Anomaly separately discovered samples of the ransomware targeting network-attached storage devices. NAS servers are a privileged target for hackers because they normally store large amounts of data. The ransomware was targeting poorly protected or vulnerable NAS servers manufactured by QNAP and Synology. Threat actors exploited known vulnerabilities or carried out brute force attacks. The ransomware tracked by Intezer as QNAP Crypt and Echo Rakes by Anomaly is written in the Go programming language and uses AES encryption to encrypt the files. The malicious code appends .encrypt extension to files. The malicious code appends .encrypt extension to file names of encrypted files. StealthWorker botnet targets Synology NAS devices to drop ransomware. Taiwan-based vendor Synology has warned customers that StealthWorker botnet is conducting brute force attacks in an attempt to implant ransomware. Once the device was compromised, threat actors employed it in a botnet used in attacks aimed at Linux systems, including Synology NAS. Synology PSIRT Product Security Incident Response Team has recently seen and received reports on an increase in brute force attacks against Synology devices. Synology security researchers believe the botnet is primarily driven by a malware family called StealthWorker. At present, Synology PSIRT has seen no indication of the malware exploiting any software vulnerabilities, reads a security advisory published by the vendor. The vendor has reported its findings with relevant certs and is working with them to dismantle the command and controls infrastructure behind the malware. Synology is also notifying affected customers. The Taiwanese company urges its customers to enable multi-factor authentication where available, enable auto-block and account protection, and to use strong administrative credentials. FlyTrap, a new Android Trojan compromised thousands of Facebook accounts. Zimperium Z-Labs researchers spotted a new Android Trojan dubbed FlyTrap that already compromised Facebook accounts of over 10,000 users in at least 144 countries since March 2021. The malware was spreading via fraudulent apps distributed through Google Play Store and also other third-party app marketplaces. Experts believe that FlyTrap belongs to a family of Trojans that employ social engineering tricks to compromise Facebook accounts as part of a session hijacking campaign. The threat actors behind the attack are likely operating out of Vietnam. The experts found a total of 9 malicious applications on Google Play that were quickly removed, but they're still available in third-party app stores. The list of malicious apps includes GG Voucher, Vote European Football, GG Coupon Ads, GG Voucher Ads, another GG Voucher, Chat Fuel, Net Coupon, another Net Coupon app, and Euro 2021 Official. 1 million compromised cards available for free in the underground market. On August 2nd, Group IB Threat Intelligence and Attribution System detected an unconventional post on several carding forums. A user nicknamed AW Cards posted links to a file containing 1 million pieces of stolen payment records. The file offered for free contained compromised card details from over 1,000 banks in more than 100 countries, including India, Mexico, the US, Australia, Brazil, etc. The post immediately sparked Group IBB researchers' interest because cybercriminals in the carding community rarely offer so many cards for free. It's especially unusual for a previously unknown market player. The analysis of the file revealed that this huge batch of compromised cards had not appeared on other underground forums. Further research revealed that the post was nothing but a very bold ad to scale up the user base of newly established card shop All World Cards, which joined the carding market in May 2021. Glowworm attack turns power light flickers into audio. Virtual meetings are vulnerable to a new exotic attack called Glowworm, which measures an audio output device's LED power light changes and converts them to audio reproductions, allowing cyber attackers to listen to sensitive conversations. As an increasing amount of business is being conducted over platforms like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Skype, and others, the findings present an entirely new attack vector for such electronic communications. A team of researchers at Ben-Gurion University have published a paper on the Glowworm vector, which is technically known as a telecommunications electronics material protected from emanating spurious transmissions attack. The U.S. National Security Agency designation for unintentional digital signals which can be picked up and used to compromise data security. Exchange servers under attack or active attack via ProxyShell bugs. Researchers, Microsoft Exchange server honeypots, are being actively exploited via ProxyShell. The name of an attack disclosed at Black Hat last week that changed 3 vulnerabilities to enable unauthenticated attackers to perform remote code execution and snag plaintext passwords. In his Black Hat presentation last week, DevCorp principal security researcher Orange Tsai said that a survey shows more than 400,000 Exchange servers on the internet that are exposed to the attack via port 443. On Monday, the SANS Internet Storm Center's Jan Kopriva reported that he found more than 30,000 vulnerable Exchange servers via a Shodan scan, and that any threat actor worthy of that title would find it a snap to pull off, given how much information is available. Going by calculations tweeted by security researcher Kevin Beaumont, this means that between Proxy Logon and ProxyShell, just under 50% of internet-facing Exchange servers are currently vulnerable to exploitation, according to a Shodan search. On the plus side, Microsoft has already released patches for all the vulnerabilities in question, and cross your fingers, chances are that most organizations that take security at least somewhat seriously have already applied the patches. The vulnerabilities affect Exchange Server 2013, 2016, and 2019. AdLoad malware 2021 samples skate past Apple XProtect. A swelling wave of AdLoad malware infections in macOS devices is cresting its way past Apple's on-device malware scanner, researchers said. The campaign is using around 150 unique samples, some of which are signed by Apple's notarization service. AdLoad is a well-known Apple threat that's been circulating for years. It's essentially a Trojan that opens a backdoor on the affected system in order to download and install adware or potentially unwanted programs. It's also capable of gathering and transmitting information about victim machines, such as username and computer name. It's also been seen hijacking search engine results and injecting advertisements into web pages. The 2021 variants of AdLoad have a new approach to infection, the researchers said. First, they begin their assault by installing a persistence agent in the user's library launch agents folder using either the .system or .service file extension, according to Stokes' technical analysis. When the user logs in, that persistence agent executes a binary hidden in the same user's library application support folder. That folder in application support, in turn, contains another directory called services, which itself contains a minimal application bundle, Stokes explained. That bundle contains an executable dropper with the same name. There's also a hidden tracker file called .log with 2 Gs that contains a universally unique identifier, a UUID, for the victim. It's also included in the application support folder, Stokes said. The droppers are slightly obfuscated ZSH scripts that which unpack a series of times before finally executing the malware. A shell script out of the /temp directory, he noted. Many of them are signed or notarized. Now we move on to other security news. Notorious AlphaBay darknet market comes back to life. The AlphaBay dark web market has come back to life after an administrator of the original project relaunched it over the weekend. At the same time, the admin announced plans for setting up a platform for darknet markets to set up shop with a strong focus on anonymity. AlphaBay started in 2014 and it became the largest darknet market. The business ended when law enforcement took it down on July 5, 2017. In Thailand, the police arrested Alexander Kazis, a Canadian citizen, using the online alias Alpha02/admin, and one of the 2 AlphaBay administrators. Someone named D-Snake was the other partner responsible for the security of the market and was never caught by the police. D-Snake has been identified as the person who is relaunching AlphaBay. Google open-sourced All-Star tool to secure GitHub repositories. Google has open-sourced the All-Star tool that can be used to secure GitHub projects by enforcing a set of security policies to prevent misconfiguration. All-Star is a GitHub app installed on organizations or repositories to set and enforce security policies. Its goal is to be able to continuously monitor and detect any GitHub setting or repository file contents that may be risky or do not follow security best practices, reads the project description. If All-Star finds a repository to be out of compliance, it'll take an action such as create an issue or restore security settings. The tool can be installed on organizations and user accounts to enforce specific policies that are highly configurable. It also allows the community to contribute by proposing new policies. The tool is developed under the OpenSSF org as a part of the Securing Critical Projects Working Group. Upon installing All-Star, administrators of the repository can review the permissions requested. The tool uses read access to most settings and file contents to analyze security compliance. It also requests the write access to issues to create issues and to checks to allow the block action. Microsoft Azure Sentinel uses Fusion machine learning to detect ransomware attacks. Microsoft Azure Sentinel Cloud Native SIEM is using the Fusion machine learning model to analyze data across enterprise environments and detect the activity associated with potential threats, including ransomware attacks. When a potential ransomware attack is detected by the Fusion machine learning model, a high-severity incident titled Multiple Alerts Possibly Related to Ransomware Activity Detected will be triggered in the Azure Sentinel workspace. In collaboration with the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center, we are excited to announce Fusion detection for ransomware is now publicly available, states the announcement published by Microsoft. These Fusion detections correlate alerts that are potentially associated with ransomware activities that are observed at defense, evasion, and execution stages during a specific time frame. According to Microsoft, Fusion detection model for ransomware allows detecting malicious activities at the defense, evasion, and execution stages of an attack, allowing security and analysts to quickly identify the threat and neutralize it. Ukraine shuts down money laundering cryptocurrency exchanges. The Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, took down a network of cryptocurrency exchanges used to anonymize transactions since the beginning of 2021. Over 1,000 customers used the clandestine exchanges to launder funds received from Russian electronic payments processors, including Yandex.Money, Kiwi, and WebMoney. The clandestine cryptocurrency exchanges were in demand because they provide anonymity of transactions and possibility of money laundering, the SBU said. The monthly volumes of funds laundered was 11 million, a tiny portion of the billions worth of cryptocurrency assets legally transacted through the top 10 exchanges each month. However, the admins could still make more than $500,000 as they received between 5 and 10% interest from each transaction. During the searches at 5 locations in the Pechersky, Shevchenkivsky and Solomiansky districts of Kiev, following an SBU main directorate investigation, law enforcement officials seized, and I'm sorry if I butchered those names, but what they seized: computers and server machines with the evidence of illegal activity, mobile devices with VPN software installed, seals and incorporation documents of dummy companies registered in Ukraine and used for money laundering activities, and $37,330 in cash. Report links ransomware gangs to Russian intelligence. Russian intelligence services worked with prominent ransomware gangs to compromise U.S. government and government-affiliated organizations, according to new research from cybersecurity firm Analyst One. 2 Russian intelligence bureaus, the Federal Security Service, or FSB, and Foreign Intelligence Service, or SVR, collaborated with individuals in multiple cybercriminal organizations, security analysts with the firm say in the report. The research indicates these cybercriminals helped Russian intelligence develop and deploy custom malware targeting American companies that serve U.S. military clients. The hacking groups used a variation of the so-called Ryuk ransomware used for attacks on large enterprises called SIDO, created specifically for espionage, according to Analyst One. The code was launched sometime between June 19th and January 2020 and hid in the background of Windows machines, silently harvesting keystrokes and sensitive documents. One attack described in the report was executed by a group dubbed Evil Corp in October 2020. Another group known as Silverfish targeted the same victim only 2 months later using the same technical infrastructure, hacking tools, and malicious scripts. The groups used a technique called domain fronting to hide their activity. They likely relied on a time-tested hacking tool called Mimikatz to infiltrate targeted systems, then distributed malware using PowerShell Windows application. Kaseya's master key to Revel attack is leaked online. Someone has leaked the master decryption key that Kaseya used to unlock the files encrypted by a Revel ransomware attack on the company that affected customers across 22 countries last month. However, while the key may be interesting to security researchers, it's not likely to be of use to any of the other companies Revel hit in the spate of attacks that occurred on July 2nd. A security researcher who goes by the handle @Pancake on Twitter found what was purported to be the key on a hacking forum and tweeted about it, posting a screenshot to the key and on Twitter and also GitHub. While it was first thought that the key could unlock all of the Revel attacks that occurred at the same time as the Kaseya one, it soon became clear to researchers that the decryptor, which appeared to some to be genuine, was only for the files locked in the Kaseya attack. Lockbit ransomware recruiting insiders to breach corporate networks. The Lockbit 2.0 ransomware gang is actively recruiting corporate insiders to help them breach and encrypt networks. In return, the insider is promised million-dollar payouts. Many ransomware gangs operate as ransomware as a service, which consists of a core group of developers who maintain the ransomware and payment sites, and recruited affiliates to breach victims' networks and encrypted devices. Any ransom payments that victims make are then split between the core group and the affiliate, with the affiliate usually receiving 70 to 80% of the total amount. However, in many cases, the affiliates purchase access to networks from other third-party pen testers rather than breaching the company themselves. With Lockbit 2.0, the ransomware gang is trying to remove the middleman and instead recruit insiders to provide them access to a corporate network. So, there you have it for the week. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe and smash the bell. See you guys on the next episode. Take care.